What's up, YouTubers? Rich from 2RC Productions today. I want to do a little RC video for you. What we got here is the 1/10 scale ECX Torment. And a couple weeks ago, Ryan decided he wanted to take it out. This is my truck, and he wanted to use it. He enjoys this truck. It runs good in that. So he ran about 3 or 4 batteries through it. You can see it is absolutely filthy. It was running through the dirt and stuff, which is fine. That's what they're for. But what I'm here today is to show you guys, for the beginners, the anatomy of a basic RC, and then 2, after run maintenance of an RC. Now this vehicle happens to be waterproof. Waterproof electronics is what they say. But in actuality, waterproof electronics is water resistant. There's a difference. Waterproof would mean you could take this whole car and submerge it in a bucket of water or in a lake and nothing will happen, and that's not the case. You will definitely get water seepage inside, you know, the speed controller and so on, and the servos if you do that. Further steps need to be taken, like plastic dipping the parts and so on. But what a water resistant vehicle, or splash resistant, means that you can run it through puddles and run it through snow and you'll be absolutely fine. So the one bonus about having an RC that's water resistant is that you can use a hose to spray it down. Now the other vehicles that are not waterproof, you have to use like nitro wash or, you know, some kind of electrical cleaner that's safe on plastic. You got to wipe it with a damp cloth and be careful not to get any of the components wet. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to clean this, and then I'm going to show you the after run maintenance, and then after that I'm going to go over the basics of an RC vehicle, hobby grade RC vehicle. Alright, YouTubers, so check out our, we just got done putting our Halloween decorations up here. Megan just finished that up. Grace gets all excited about it, so got that stuff set up. So anyway, we're out here, and it has nothing to do with the video. So anyway, you have to watch out for the speed controller. And what we're going to do is you can see I have kind of a fine spray. And basically you can take this thing like this, and you can just let it rip with the water. Like I say, splash resistant on the speed controller, no problem. No problem whatsoever. So we're kind of getting it wet here. The suspension parts are what collect the most dirt. Get more water on myself than I am on the car. So anyway, take and rinse down, and you can take a brush like this and kind of just brush off your suspension parts and that, because you get the bristles inside there. And like I say, don't be afraid to splash water on here like we're doing, as long as you have a waterproof, water resistant car. Again, you do not want to do this to a vehicle. If there's any question, that's too much. If there's any question whatsoever, you want to make sure and check that out. You don't want to, you can spray the motor off on the outside. And the thing with the motor is you got to watch the water with the motor too. And that's why we're doing what we're going to do the next step. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Basically shake that out. Looks like most of the dirt's off. You know, light brush, bristle brush. Anything you see in the cracks, usually the inside of the wheels, collect a lot of dirt, rinse them off. Most of it will come off pretty easy, especially if it's just dirt dust. Okay. And basically what I do is you just shake it out. I notice our speed treads are looking kind of crummy here. We're going to polish those up a little bit. Clean it up a little bit. I have some stuff that we could use on that too and make them even better. Alright, you can see how our speed treads are pretty dingy and dark looking. This is Wesley's Bleach White. This is used for cars. You don't want to use a lot of this on there. I'm talking a very, very small little dot on the brush. That's all we want to do, just that. You don't want to get too much of this, and you got to make sure you rinse it off when you're done. But we'll put a little bit on the tires, and you'll see how awesome they look. You don't want to get this in your eyes or anything. This stuff's pretty strong. See, I got a little residue left on the brush. And there is some RCs that have white wall tires, not a lot. Now let's see the difference here. Yeah, see that? It's like brand new. It's looking like brand new, right? Looking like brand new tires on there, right? Look at that. Very nice. Can do a little bit more over on this one. And like I say, just a little bit on there. You see the little bit of residue on there? Goes a long way. And then you want to make sure you rinse that off. Oh, yeah, look at that. We have the Torment looking like new. Now you look at the other side, how yellow. Nice and clean and white. Yellow. Put one little spray back on there. See the little bit of blue on there? That's it. And this stuff works great on real cars as well. Rub that up. The Shootout Speed Tread tires. These tires work pretty well on this truck. They're very hard compound, which is good. If you don't want to be replacing, you know, tires every other week. Whoops. And like I say, rinse the residue off, make sure there's nothing left on there. Okay. Now what we do, there's a couple ways you can do this. You can rinse with compressed, or not rinse, but you can put compressed air to it and get all the water off. What I like to do is, in this scenario, is I just kind of shake it out a little bit, make sure, you know, wing it a little bit, get all the big water out of it, and then we'll just let it sit here for a while in the sun. And then once it's dry, well, actually before it dries, hold on a second. Okay, we're gonna let this thing dry a little bit, like I said, in the sun. What you want to use is, they have different electrical motor cleaners. Duratrack makes one, Power Shot, that's really good. This one here I found actually at the local Home Depot. It's QD Contact Cleaner by CRC. It's safe on plastics. That's what you have to make sure. You have to make sure it's safe on plastics. You don't want to use this on your car and it's going to damage something. So right away what you want to do, because we did expose our motor to some water right now, is we want to take this and we want to spray the whole end valve of the motor and the whole surface of the motor, really. There's slots in the motor where the armature goes through and the brushes are down inside that slot. Basically, there's an open slot for air to get in. Some motors have cooling fans in there. So I'm spraying this thing out really good to get, basically just get rid of the water too. So once you do that, you take your pinpoint oiler. This happens to be Trinity brand, makes this. I've had this for many, many years. And occasionally you have to take the motor out of the car to do this oiling, because there's a bushing on each side of the motor. There's one, and there's one on the inboard. Well, the inboard is oiled and it's closed in the gearbox right now. It attaches to the pinion gear, which drives the car. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a dot of this oil on that brass bushing. See that? I put a little dot around there, and then what will happen is it'll work itself in there and keep that motor lubed up. So we sprayed the cleaner in there and we put a little oil on the outside. Now the next step is, once the car is dry, you can take paper towels and wipe it down, or air dry, or compressed air. Once it's dry, again, because it was exposed to water, any metal parts that aren't stainless steel or aluminum or brass will rust. They will corrode. So what we will do is spray all the moving parts. We're going to spray the bearings, because the bearings, you know, are steel. We're going to spray the bearings. We're going to spray all the suspension components. We're going to spray the shock shaft, because that's metal. And we're just basically going to skim over this thing with WD-40. And I'm going to kind of show you. It's still a little bit wet, but WD-40 itself dissipates water. So here's what we're going to do. We don't want to spray the motor, because we already did that. Wow, what's going on with this? It's broken. So basically, right here, give it a little WD, WD, WD on the shocks, WD, all the swivel points. You don't want to spray your electronics or anything with this. Just a little dot, shocks, inside the wheels, suspension. These are all moving parts. And then what you do is you let this sit. You know, if you're bringing it inside, stack up some paper towels, lay it on there, and let the WD-40 run off. And then after a while, it won't drip anymore, but you'll have a nice protective coating on there, and the WD-40 won't hurt any of the plastic. So the anatomy of a basic 1/10 scale or any scale hobby grade RC. They're shining out here, right? What we got is you got your suspension, and you can see that this is dual independent suspension in the front, and it's just like a real car. You have moving parts. See how the wheels, the older Tamiya vehicles, they were fixed, so when they went up you would lose camber. These don't. They stay perfectly uniform. I mean, it's just like a car. Double wishbone suspension. So there's parts in here that make up this shock, and these are oil-filled shocks. And most vehicles come with instruction manual to show you how to repair and work on these. And you will have to repair them, there's no doubt about it. But first main component is suspension, front and rear. Same thing, shocks in the back. In the back, because this is a two-wheel drive vehicle, you have drive shafts in the back that come off of the gearbox. This is the gearbox here. And all cars have a gearbox. They don't run a pinion gear directly to your drive wheels. That's how you get more speed, more power, depending on how it's set up. There's a series of gears in here, and then your motor itself, your electric motor, has a pinion gear on it right here. It's a small gear that drives a big gear, which is the spur. A lot of the vehicles have slipper clutches on them. So if you happen to hang up or a tire gets stuck, it'll slip instead of putting all the power to the gearbox and snapping gears. So you have an electric motor, you have a gearbox or transmission. You call them transmission, gearbox, they're called different things. Two-wheel drive vehicle, drive shafts coming off the gearbox that drives the rear wheels. You have an electronic speed control, or ESC. This is where your battery hooks into. You turn this on, your battery will be hooked into this. This transfers power to the motor and the gearbox and the servos. You have a receiver, which is another little box that's underneath here that hooks up to your transmitter. And the receiver takes in the signal and transfers it to the ESC, which makes the car drive. The receiver transfers power to the servo for steering. In the old days, cars used to have two servos because they had a mechanical speed controller that a servo had to drive. The new ones, the ESC does that job. So you have one servo, which is under here as well. And the servo is what drives the front wheels. So when you input the controller, it engages the servo, which makes the wheels turn. So that's what that does. So you have a servo in the front, ESC, transmission or gearbox, electric motor, front and rear suspension, drive shafts, shocks, wheels, tires. Some vehicles have bearings and some have bushings. This vehicle happens to have ball bearings on all four wheels, and what that does for you is that lets the wheels spin extra free like that. A lot of places, companies will use plastic bushings or brass bushings, and you just have a little more friction. The tire doesn't spin as much. It takes a little more power of the motor to push the car. So that's basically the anatomy of a hobby grade RC. And there's a million different screws and parts on every RC you're going to buy, but don't be intimidated, because most of them have manuals that will give you a step-by-step breakdown, numbers, part numbers to order parts or whatever. And once you have something break and you get into it, you'll learn how to fix it. And if you might only have one vehicle, or you might have 100 vehicles, but whatever vehicle you do get, you should fix yourself, take apart, and familiarize yourself with that particular car or truck. So like I said, this happens to be an electric powered brush motor. They also have brushless motors, brushless systems. Generally the brush motors are old school, and they are the starter motor for vehicles. You know, your entry-level vehicles will have a brushed motor, which this happens to be a 15 turn brush motor. And there's a lot more into the turns, and I have other videos on my channel that explains more of that stuff. But today it's just the general cleanup and anatomy of an RC. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Rich here from 2RC Productions. If you guys have any other questions or want any other information, I will help you out the best I can. And please don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Until next time, Rich from 2RC Productions signing out.